All right, well, I was over at Smoky Mountain Knife Works the other day and picked up this LT Wright knife. So it's another LT Wright. Knife is the Bandit. It's in PSB 27 steel, flat grind, and it's Python micarta with a matte finish. So LT Wright, they always make good stuff. This little knife here is from what I can understand, it's a exclusive for Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Just like LT Wright made his knife with Nature Reliance, it was the Chamonix, and you only get it through Nature Reliance. Well, Smoky Mountain Knife Works, you know, they're a big knife retail shop, and so they got with LT Wright and got this knife made, and as far as I know, you still can only get it through them. I'd looked at them a time or two and just ended up getting something else each time I'd looked at them, and so I finally picked one up the other day. Well, I'll show the sheath first. Nothing surprising there. It's the normal LT Wright sheath. Really nothing surprising. It's that bushcraft sheath that they always have with their stuff. Really nice sheath for that style. Not my favorite sheath in the world. See, here's the same one, a little bit bigger for the large Northern Hunter LT Wright. The difference here that I see on this one, and maybe that's something to do with what they're thinking the knife will be used for, is that this one don't have a fire steel loop on it nowhere, and it don't have the dangler. My other knives that I got from LT always had the dangler, but they were bigger knives. So this is kind of small, so it might just sit right on your belt, and maybe they don't anticipate needing a fire steel. But I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. The thing that I find a little bit strange about that. So let's open up the knife here, unroll it. There's the knife, folks. Really nice knife. Handle's not contoured a whole lot, but it feels comfortable in the hand. Big enough to get all 4 fingers on. It's got a P on the blade on that side. Now LT Wright will he just puts a letter code, just 1 letter code on his knives. That's got an L on it right there. This one does, because it's AEBL, and that's his code for that. So each different kind of steel, he has a code he puts on there. And then of course on the other side, the Pout House emblem. Now this knife has a sharpening notch right there. I like that. Some of his don't. You could put one in any knife you wanted to your own self. It's got a little bit of a guard right there, and I like that. So it's Python micarta. That's just to do with the color. It's got good figure on that side. It's just the color of the micarta. Got a good big lanyard hole right there, lined with brass. I like that. Overall, so far there's nothing I don't like about this knife. Now for a little bit of the specs. Okay, according to Smoky Mountain Knife Works, their website and all that, it's supposed to have a 3.05 inch blade. They don't tell the thickness on it, but it's a thin blade, which I like in a knife this size. Be real good and slicey. 7.37 inches overall. Now I'm gonna try to just measure that a little bit and just see. Starting about 19. Yeah, they got that about right. And then 23, you know, the cutting edge part. So yeah, about 3 cutting edge part, starting at the, you know, it's a little over 3 inches, like they said. If you go all the way back to the handle, it's more, but still less than 3.5. Now, one thing that I found funny about their website is they said this was a drop point. But to me, when I'm looking at this, I would almost put that in the trailing point. It almost looks like it goes up a little bit on the end more than it drops. And we can check that by putting it at the straight edge. Is it a drop point? No. If anything, it's a straight back. See that? It don't really trail at all. Well, maybe a little bit. If you look right there, there's maybe a little gap back here. But it's definitely not a drop point. That's what they put on the website, but whoever put that didn't look at the knife too close, because that's not a drop point knife. I'd say that's a straight back. Anyway, the steel on it. I've never had anything in PSB 27 steel, so I just looked that up just to see what I could find out about it. And what I found out is it's a D2 type steel, whatever that means. But anyway, it was supposed to be like an upgrade to D2, and a lot of people like D2 really well. It's a tool steel. And it's fairly stain resistant and stuff, D2 is. This here has about 11 to 12% chromium in it. This should be decently stain resistant, but I didn't get it for that. But this is a spray formed, this PSB 27 is a spray formed premium particle steel that it's like an upgrade to D2. It beats D2 in every category from what I've seen of the charts that I got from the place that were making this steel. And that's just off the internet. And I've never used it at all, but it's supposed to have high wear resistance and it don't chip too easy. So it should be a very good steel, because D2 is really good in and of itself, and this is supposed to be better than that. I heard somewhere or read somewhere, maybe from the metal place, that this is supposed to have about 3 times the wear resistance and the let's say performance. 3 times the performance of D2. So hopefully it's not too hard to sharpen. I looked up some videos on that and stuff too. One guy was sharpening it and stuff, and he just stropped it a whole bunch. He's all he did, and he never got it as sharp as he could his A2, but that's not saying much. Just showing that it's a hard steel, and D2 is pretty hard too anyway. So yeah, anyway, the steel seems like it's going to be real good. And another thing about it is I did see a review from Dutch Bushcraft Knives. Now, some people might like them or not like them, whatever. But they had a review on it. They review a lot of knives and a lot of different types of steels. And they got an LT Wright that was in that steel, and they reviewed it. And they batoned through some stuff and did all their stuff that they do, carving and bushcraft stuff, and bordering on abusing knives sometimes, but they really test them to see how durable they are, how sharp they stay. And they said that PSB 27 was one of the best steels that they had tested. It was up there. They didn't say it's the best steel they ever seen, but it was up there with the really good steels, maybe one of the best knives they had tested. And that wasn't the Bandit, it was the LT Wright, like a Genesis or something like that, and the same steel. So anyway, you can take that for what it's worth, but it should be fairly stain resistant, better than D2, and that's saying something. So getting back to the one more thing there that I'd talked about before, and I said I'd mention that I thought was strange. No fire steel loop on here, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is not shown to be a bushcraft knife necessarily. I don't consider it. This is more like a hunting knife. Now that's a little smaller than a lot of people like, but I think that right there size, you could really work on deer or pigs or anything with that size blade, or anything you want to skin or cut up. That size blade, for me anyway, I can get my finger on the end of it pretty easy. I like that. It's thin, it'll slice right through, and you don't need anything bigger than that as far as field dressing. I'm talking about just gutting them and doing that. So I think it'd be real good for that. It's small and thin enough, it'd be real good for fish. And so I thought, well, that's probably why they you know, they consider it more like a hunting knife, or a smaller knife for, you know, paring or cutting up things around, little stuff around the kitchen or wherever, or stuff like fish and game, small game up to deer and whatever size like that. But the thing about it is, this is a large northern hunter, and that definitely is a hunting knife, even in the name. Now it's a lot bigger blade and everything, a lot different style. It's a Canadian belt knife style, and you've seen this knife on here, and we use this knife all the time around here. I like that knife, and I like the Canadian belt knife style and stuff. But most of the LT Wrights have this sharp spine here. Well, this hunting knife don't have a sharp spine. It's sharp enough. I bet you could get sparks off a fire steel with it, but it's not what this knife's made for, really. And they didn't sharpen the spine the way they do on a lot of their knives. So it has the fire steel on its sheath and stuff. But here we got this knife that you'd think would be really more of a hunting knife than anything else. I'm not saying it's more of a hunting knife than a Canadian belt knife, no, but they sharpened the spine on this thing. You can see right there. Now that's a decent job of it. That's not the squarest line I've ever seen, just straight square across there. And I'm still saying, I still maintain that I don't see the reason to do that, to make a really nice finished knife like this and then mangle the back of the blade like that with that rough sanding. But that's what LT does. That's something they do. They're known to have the sharpest spines or something like that, and there they did a good job on this one. They did. But I don't really like that on a knife. It's not really my thing. And if you're going to sharpen the spine, why would you not have a fire steel loop on the sheath? Because you're sharpening the spine to get sparks. Now I know you can scrape with it, or you can scale fish with the back of that, with that sharpened spine, but this right here is made for scraping hides and all that, and it don't have a sharpened spine. So that's the only thing about the knife. The fit and finish on this knife is perfect. I mean, a lot of my LT Wrights has been just perfect. Fit and finish on this knife, I couldn't find a thing wrong with it. Other than that, I don't care for that. Some of that might just be a personal taste, and they did a decent job, like I said, on that, but not perfect. But other than that, perfect fit and finish, really nice size knife. Looks like it'd be real good in the woods. So here's the knife in the sheath. I stuck it in the sheath. it's tight in there right now. Of course, we all know that'll loosen up some. These pocket sheaths like that, they don't have real good retention unless you wet form them or something. But that's the bushcraft style sheath. Right now it's tight in there, which is good. But you know, you've seen me try out an apple with any kind of knife, and I figured this thing's going to excel at that. I know that's not something you necessarily doing in the woods all the time, but it's just showing that this knife will do fine tasks. Really like this size blade. Got a lot of big knives and I use them a lot and stuff, but these small knives for slicing up stuff, and it's just the right size to gut something, I like that. You see, this knife will peel an apple like everything. You could do any kind of fine work you want to with this knife. Anything you want to fine work wise, that knife will do it. It's really slicey, and it came razor sharp. But yeah, any kind of fine work you want to do. I know that's not proving anything, that's not wood, but this is more of a game knife, so probably not going to cut a bunch of wood with it. Got this little cherry tomato, just to try that. We'll see how this thing goes through this cheddar. I'm not putting much force on that, but it's going right through there. This thin blade, razor sharp. Oh yeah. Perfect. So one more comparison I had right fast and my other LT Wright is just this blade is the handle is pinned onto this blade with one pin, and then the lanyard hole back here, and of course I know it's epoxied in there good and stuff. Or that one there's got the lanyard hole and these two heavy fisheye bolts in there. I call them bolts. They're rivets or whatever they are. So you know, I guess this is probably a little bit less sturdy, but with the size of knife, and you're not going to be beating on it, you shouldn't be anyway, to try to beat it through baton and something or whatever. I think it'll hold up fine. If it don't, you'll be knowing about it. I'll make a review on it if that ever comes loose, but I just wanted to point out the difference in the construction on the two knives. Generally the knives I've got from LT has had that on them, but now they've all been big. This is the smallest one I'd got from LT Wright before this one. So to finish the video off, I got my collection of LT Wrights right here. Now I do have two of these, as I've shown and told before. They're two identical ones. When I bought this one, there was only one over there, and so I have only it right now. I hadn't picked up another one, and I just have this one. There's only one of these Python handled ones, so I try to get matched sets. So anyway, that's my three LT Wrights. Like I say, I do have a pair of them. I'm just showing the different knives I have. The Nature Reliance long knife / Chamonix, the large Northern Hunter, and the Bandit now. So these two are both AEBL steel. That's PSB 27, and we'll see how it does compared to these others. So overall, I think this is going to be a really handy knife to have around just for all types of odd tasks, whatever you'd want to do with it. It'd almost be like a daily carry knife too. It's plenty little enough you could carry it daily carry or anything. Fits tight in the sheath. So anyway, there it is, the LT Wright Bandit. Have a good day.